What happens when the man who bragged about sleeping with nearly 5,000 women finally decides to marry? And why did it take him 28 years to put a ring on it? The truth is, his 2011 wedding wasn't a fairy tale. It was damage control, and the scandals that followed make his wild stage persona look tame. Gene Simmons, early years. Before he was the fire-breathing demon of rock, Gene Simmons wasn't even Gene Simmons. He was born Chaim Witz in Haifa, Israel, in 1949. His mother, Flora Klein, had survived the Holocaust as a teenage girl watching her family torn apart in Nazi labor camps. That shadow never really left her, and her silence carried into Gene's childhood. Money was tight. His parents divorced when he was just 6, leaving his mother to raise him alone. She worked brutal shifts in factories, while little Chaim made do with bread, milk, and even a winter coat sewn from an army blanket. He learned early what it meant to struggle. At school, he was bullied for being different. But something else gave him hope: comic books. Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, they were his escape. He couldn't read English yet, but he taught himself, word by word, just to understand his heroes. By the time he was 9, he was juggling Hebrew, Hungarian, Turkish, and English. And soon, he was juggling identities too. When he and his mother moved to New York in 1958, Chaim became Eugene Klein. A few years later, he shortened it again to Gene, inspired by cowboy actors like Gene Autry. He wanted to be American, to fit in, to be someone. From teacher to rock star, Gene worked odd jobs, selling fruit, slicing meat in butcher shops, always saving every dime. He stayed away from alcohol, noticing how sloppy drunk men lost their edge. Instead, he sharpened his own. He picked up a guitar, formed little bands, and by the late 60s was teaching 6th grade in Spanish Harlem. But his real classroom was on stage. With Paul Stanley, he formed Wicked Lester. The Prive band bombed, their record got shelved, and Gene was furious. But from that failure, a new idea was born. Bigger, louder, stranger. In 1973, Gene, Paul, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss created a band that wasn't just about music. It was about spectacle: fire, blood, costumes, masks. They called it KISS. Their first show had only 3 people in the audience, but by 1975, they were selling out stadiums, powered not by radio hits, but by unforgettable stage shows. Gene invented the Demon, painting bat wings around his eyes and spitting blood. He studied fire breathing from a professional and turned concerts into a circus of chaos. Kids spread the word, and soon, KISS wasn't just a band. It was a movement. SEX, scandals, and superstardom. While the band exploded, so did Gene's ego. He became obsessed with photographing his encounters with women, thousands of Polaroids of groupies holding up hotel keys as proof. He bragged about sleeping with 4,800 women. Even fellow rock stars found it disgusting. And yet, his hunger wasn't just for sex. It was for money, fame, and control. He pushed the band into becoming a brand. Lunchboxes, action figures, pinball machines, even coffins. By the late 70s, KISS wasn't just music, it was an empire. But behind the fire and blood, cracks appeared. Drugs, infighting, disco experiments, and the infamous 1978 TV movie Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park nearly killed their credibility. By 1983, they did the unthinkable. They took off the makeup on live TV. It saved them, at least for a while. The women behind the demon. In 1983, at the Playboy Mansion, Gene met Shannon Tweed, Playmate of the Year. She knew his reputation, yet stayed. For 28 years, she lived with his wandering eye. They had 2 kids, Nick and Sophie. But Gene refused to marry, calling it a trap. The cracks finally broke open during their reality show in the 2000s. Shannon discovered his infamous Polaroid collection and burned it live on air. She walked off interviews calling him a pig. Fans thought it was over. But then, in 2011, Gene shocked everyone. After nearly 3 decades, he proposed and married Shannon in a lavish ceremony. But here's the catch. Many say the wedding wasn't just about love. It was about saving face, repairing his image after affairs, sex tapes, and lawsuits with women who accused him of harassment, family troubles, and public backlash. Even his kids weren't spared from controversy. In 2010, his son Nick was accused of plagiarizing the Japanese manga Bleach in his comic book Incarnate. The backlash was brutal. Gene himself kept stumbling. In 2017, he tried to trademark the devil horns hand gesture, sparking outrage across the music world. In 2024, his creepy comments on Dancing with the Stars went viral for all the wrong reasons. And yet, his money never stopped flowing. By the 2000s, he was worth nearly $500 million thanks to Kiss merchandise, restaurants, and even a cannabis company. He even sold VIP packages in 2025 for over $12,000, where fans could play roadie for a day. Critics called it shameless. Fans bought them anyway. The final mask slips. In 2018, Gene's unshakable image cracked when his mother, Flora, passed away at 93. She had been his anchor, his silent reminder of survival. On social media, Gene dropped the bravado and simply called her his moral compass. For once, fans saw him without the mask, just a son grieving his mother. And yet, even in recent years, Gene hasn't slowed down. From clashing with politicians he once insulted, to charging hundreds for solo shows, to breaking down on TV after Ozzy Osbourne's death, he remains a man caught between his demon persona and the boy who once sewed a coat out of an army blanket. So who is Gene Simmons really? The poor immigrant kid from Israel who idolized comic book heroes? The demon spitting blood on stage? The businessman who turned a band into a billion-dollar empire? Or the husband who finally said, "I do," after 28 years, only when forced by scandal? Maybe he's all of them. A survivor shaped by his mother's silence. A showman fueled by ego, and a man who built his empire on fire, makeup, and masks. Masks he still wears even when they're gone. And that's the paradox of Gene Simmons. He wanted to be unforgettable, and love him or hate him, he succeeded. If you found this story fascinating, hit that like button, share it with someone who remembers the madness of Kiss. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of legends who built their fame on fire and secrets.